Hi folks, I'd love to get your opinion and your feedback and your comments on a trend that I have kind of seen in worship leading over the past 18 months or 2 years. I've noticed this trend just in my own life, and because I've recently been conducting a number of interviews for my songwriting site, opensourcesongs.com, with other worship leaders and songwriters, I've also observed that the same trend seems to be occurring with other worship leaders. So I'd love to if you're a worship leader involved in worship ministry, I'd love to see if you've observed this yourself, if you've been involved in doing any of these things. And the trend is twofold. First of all, there seems to be an increasing God seems to be increasingly drawing us as worship leaders and worshippers and musicians to spending increasing amounts of time in the secret place, just with our instrument, with our voice, just worshipping for the audience of one. And I know in a sense that in itself isn't anything new, but there just seems to be an increasing urgency and increasing desire for us to kind of spend prolonged periods of time just worshipping. I know for me that manifests itself in a couple of ways. First of all, in my own just kind of personal devotions, and secondly, it's a big part of what we do at the Coleraine House of Prayer. Coleraine House of Prayer is an intercessory worship gathering that has been going for almost 9 years now in our hometown of Coleraine here on the Causeway Coast of Ireland, and I have been involved in that ever since, and a lot of our time is spent just doing that, just creating space and time to seek the one who loves to be found. So that's the first trend that I've observed both in myself and in others. I've recently done interviews with Catherine Scott, with Noel Richards, with Brian Houston, with you.